And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Level Dive Flux. My name is Nick and today we are talking about Quentin Tarantino's hit film Pulp Fiction. Now, I'm on record as saying this movie, it's just not that good. But I'm an adult. My opinions can change. This movie's actually pretty good. I watched it just this last week for whatever reason. I don't know. I put it on and I was like, you know what? I'm going to watch it because I guess I always sort of say it's like not that good and he's got better movies. But, you know, people come back at me and say, well, Pulp Fiction. And I'm like, all right. Okay. All right. So I gave it another watch, and honestly, it's pretty good. So my opinion has changed, and I will say that this movie is actually pretty fucking good, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it from beginning to end. So I think the thing that I guess makes it not as good as Quentin Tarantino's other movies, but is sort of the beginning of Quentin Tarantino's movies. QT. I'm going to call him QT from now on because I don't want to keep saying Quentin Tarantino. So, QT. The writing in this movie is very good. And the reason the writing is very good is because Quentin Tarantino originally wanted to be an actor, and he went to acting classes and he went to acting school, and I guess I don't really know what happened. I don't remember the exact details, but he ended up going more a directorial route. But the way that he writes his scripts is they are fun to read. Now, that's what makes him, at least, I mean, he has sort of his own attitude, but his movies are fun for the actor to read, and he writes that way because he wanted to be an actor, right? And I think it's very interesting. Quentin Tarantino, before he moved into Hollywood, he worked at a fucking movie store. Yeah, there's the M's are real hard on this. I'm watching the fucking recording. Jesus Christ. Like, I'm trying to be as close to the mic as possible, but fuck. Some of this shit's real fucking sharp. You know, I mean, this is as good as it gets when you're using a SingStar mic from the fucking PlayStation. Okay, this is what we get. I mean, Level Die is underground. That's what we are. We're an underground podcast. There's like maybe 3 people that listen to this shit. That's who we are. We're underground. You, as the listener, should feel good when this shit inevitably pops off and becomes famous. You're like, dude, I remember when he was using a SingStar mic and a computer that can't run any programs that help with editing. Anyway, excuse the tangent. Quentin Tarantino started as, I don't want to say like a failed actor, but he tried acting and then moved on from it. And then he started script writing and directing. And obviously it's fucking worked for him. But I think that's like a really cool motivational thing, right? Where you, the person listening to this right now, you can find your niche. Obviously, Quentin Tarantino has talent. Like, you can't just write screenplays and direct movies with no talent. But we're living in the age of information. You can look up fucking anything. Dude, I've looked up how to write comic books. And I've looked up how to write screenplays. I've looked up how to write fucking video games. And I mean, QT probably didn't have any of that shit. So I guess if you have the talent, if you have the soul, you can honestly pursue anything that you want. And good luck to you. I hope that you can find the thing that you're truly meant to do. But he moved towards writing movies and directing movies. And you can tell you're watching a Quentin Tarantino, a QT movie, because of the way that it's written. And I guess I always gave Pulp Fiction flack because it just seemed dated, right? Like, because there's so many more QT movies out there. But I guess this is like the true beginning of what a QT movie is. I mean, this lays the foundation for what he's going to do for the next, 20 years? I mean, he's got one more movie to make. And then apparently, according to QT himself, he said he always wanted to be a director that made 10 movies and then just quit Hollywood. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was number 9. So he's got one more. And honestly, I mean, Pulp Fiction was huge. It was a fucking huge movie. It changed the way people thought about movies. I mean, before Pulp Fiction, there wasn't a movie that was written like it. So I can definitely appreciate the impact that this movie had. And watching it again, 20 years fucking later as an adult and as a skeptic, it's a fucking good movie, dude. It's a good movie. And I'm very interested to get past this intro and talk about it some more. So the movie opens with a description of what pulp is. And pulp is defined as a story that's a little dirty, typically written on rough, unfinished paper. Rough is super rough in this recording, so excuse all the spikes. It's the SingStar mic. Trust me, if I had a Yeti or something good, this shit would look pretty clean. But hey, this is who Level Die is. So he puts in a definition of pulp: rough around the edges, sort of dirty, right? So you can get sort of an understanding of what this movie's going to be, and it is. And one of the moments I noticed that is sort of like we made this movie and it's incomplete and it's sort of rough around the edges is when after the apartment's interrogation scene with Jules Winfield, played by Samuel L. Jackson, and Brett, played by whoever the fuck, a dude pops out of nowhere and shoots an entire revolver at Jules Winfield and Vincent Vega. Vincent Vega, played by John Travolta. And every single bullet misses. And Jules turns around, Samuel L. He turns around and he looks at the wall, and there's 6 bullet holes. And then this basically starts his entire character arc for the movie, where he wants to get out of being a criminal and he wants to move on. He's he's in a, quote, transitional period. I think that's a quote. I think that's a quote. Don't quote me on that. But the funny thing about that scene is the bullet holes are in the wall before the unnamed character fires the gun. And I think that it adds to the sort of pulp attitude that Pulp Fiction is inspired by. And pulp novels, they're this old, like, I would say like 1940s, 50s, 60s novels that are sort of like westerns or noirs, and they're just like a little inappropriate, you know. And obviously the name, because Quentin Tarantino is inspired by movies. He worked in a movie store. He's a big movie nerd, and then he ended up writing and directing movies, which is why I said that you can find your niche. But there's this really good YouTube video called How Quentin Tarantino Steals. And honestly, just don't even listen to this podcast and just watch that video. But he's inspired by all this shit that he grew up watching. And it turns into this movie because he puts his own flair into it. And it's very, very cool. But I really liked the fact that this movie feels rough. It feels like Reservoir Dogs was his first movie. And that movie was pretty good. But I feel like Pulp Fiction, it has its roughness, and it feels like it was his first movie, you know? I mean, I think that this movie, PF, Pulp Fiction, has more personality than Reservoir Dogs. And I think it's one of the reasons that it stuck through the ages. So, have I even gotten to the actual opening of the movie? No, I haven't. So, I swear to God, this podcast is only going to be like 35 minutes long. We're gonna speed through the rest. So the movie opens on two people robbing a diner, and literally every fucking time I watch this movie, it makes me want to rob a diner. Like, seriously. So, over the years, I've developed a strategy, and you can tell me in the comments, which I'm trying to engage with you. I'm trying to be a good fucking content creator, okay? Just bear with me here. So I developed a strategy on how to rob a restaurant. And I'm gonna give it to you right now. And I want you to tell me if you think this shit could work. Now, legally, I'm pretty sure legally I have to say I do not condone robbing a restaurant. But I'd be kind of down to see if this shit works. So, thing is we're also in the modern day, so it has to change a little bit. In Pulp Fiction, they pulled it off with two people. Sorry, but this is the end of 2019, baby. We're in 2020 now, basically. Okay, shit's fucked. Things are different. So here's my strategy. Again, legally, I do not condone people robbing restaurants. But off the record, I think this could work. Okay. So, you would need 4 people. 4. And the heist would take, I would say, maybe just 4 days of preparation. 4 days. So, the beginning of the heist, you're going to need to, one person is going to need to go to a car rental place, and they're going to need to rent a car. Now, this car is going to be your vanish car. That's what we're going to be calling it for the rest of this stratagem. You rent the Vanish car, I would say 1 day before. So this would take two days, but I mean like three days to plan, but 2 days to execute. You rent the car. You say you're going to rent it for a week, whatever. You pay that money. The thing is thinking about it, since I've been thinking about this the whole week, like you might not pull in enough money to afford the cost that goes into robbing the diner, but this is my sort of the perfect way to rob a diner. Legally, I do not condone this. So you buy the Vanish car. You rent the Vanish car. You park the Vanish car, I would say, within 2 miles of the restaurant that you plan on robbing. The day of the robbery, you hotwire and steal a random vehicle. Now, you would case this vehicle out. So, I lived in an apartment complex for quite a bit of time, and you sort of become familiar with the vehicles around you, and you sort of start to, maybe it's just me, maybe because I'm a criminal in in disguise, right? But you sort of start to take notice of the vehicles that are around you and when they are gone and when they are here. Now, I would recommend that you case out a place and notice when a vehicle is in a parking lot and is sort of left there till the next day. Now, what you do is day of the robbery, you go into said apartment complex, you steal said vehicle, and then basically you've got like what? A 7-hour window before that fucking vehicle is reported stolen. You rob the restaurant within that 7 hours. Now, let's just say the driver and 3 other people who are doing the actual in-store robbery. You steal that vehicle. You pick up the robbers. You head to the restaurant. You park the vehicle, trunk facing the restaurant, but out of the view of the window seats. So there's booths in most restaurants that are up against windows so that people can look outward. Now, some of those seats look onto the parking lot. Now, you want to park away from those windows because you and your crew want to roll up without masks on because it's very suspicious to be driving around in a car with fucking balaclavas on. And if a cop sees you, he's going to pull you over with a bunch of firearms and you're going to jail and the robbery is fucked. So, you park in the parking lot. You pull in, I would say, in one of the other entrances sort of away from the restaurant. Now, you want to pick a restaurant that's sort of like in a shopping, like a shopping mall, like one of those open air fucking, there's like a few, stores and shit, like a Kohl's, right across the street from like the diner you're robbing. Okay. You pull in, you back into the parking spot because you want your trunk aimed at the restaurant. We'll get into that in a minute. Now, the 3 men that you were with head towards the restaurant. Now, this is where some extra planning time comes in. If you case the restaurant, now I would say one of the best ways, now I don't know how this shit works, but I believe that if someone showed up to a restaurant in a suit with a fake health inspector badge and said, "Hey, I'm a health inspector. I just want to take a quick look around," I don't think a manager would have an issue with that, honestly. So this person walks around and can get a layout of the restaurant, where tables are located, exits, uh, things like that. And you do it low key while inspecting food and freezers and blah, blah, blah. But I guess you don't have to do that, but I would say casing the joint is probably a good idea. And you could do that like a month in advance because the exits and shit and the tables don't change. So, there's two ways this can go. If there is a back door, or if there is only one entrance and exit to the building. Now, I'm pretty sure that most buildings need to have two exits as a way for people to exit in case of a fire. So, if there is in fact a back door exit, when you approach the restaurant, what you're going to want to do with your three men is you're going to want to have two men go in through the front door while one man goes to the back door. Now, if there is no back door, all three men enter the front door. But I honestly think there's a back door to probably every restaurant. So, let's go with the back door strategy. As the two men enter the front door, man number one is going to do immediate crowd control. He's going to say, "Get the fuck down. This is a robbery. Everyone on the ground." Man number two is going to cycle his way through the restaurant, doing the same thing, saying, "Get on the ground. This is a robbery." But to basically tables individually, he's going to make his way to the back of the restaurant, through the kitchen, to the back door. He's going to get the chefs into the fucking normal sitting area, and he's going to let in the third guy. Now, the third guy is going to come in, and man number two and man number three are going to walk back into the restaurant and create a triangle of vision in terms of watching the restaurant. Now, man number one is going to continue to stay by the front door. Man number two is the one with the bag. He is going to collect wallets, phones, keys, valuables, watches, all that shit. Man number three is going to take a manager and get the cash register and things like that. Now, while all of this is going on, the driver is in the parking lot, having not been seen by the restaurant. No one knows what car they're driving. What he's going to be doing is low-key changing the license plates from a vehicle in the parking lot to the vehicle that he's stolen, just so they get a few extra seconds of escape time. Okay? Steal license plates off of a vehicle, put it on the vehicle that you've used for the getaway car. Now, you should be in and out of that restaurant in 5 fucking minutes. If you're collecting phones and collecting watches and collecting valuables, hopefully no one is trying to use their phone to communicate to the police. So, steal the valuables, steal the cash register. Now, there is a restaurant near where I work. It's always packed. I'm telling you right now, it's always packed. So packed that you have to wait up to like 30 minutes to sit at it. And it's a breakfast restaurant. It's open from breakfast to lunch. Do not, I legally have to say, don't rob this restaurant. But, just saying, I think it could work. But legally, I don't condone that. But I think it could work. So, the three men collect the valuables. Man number 2, man number 3 leave out of the front door. Man number 1 stays as man number 2 and 3 exit. He says, "That's all we needed. We're going to be out of your hair now. Thank you for your cooperation." And he exits the door. Now, the car that you're using has changed license plates, and technically, no one should have taken notice to it. The three men who did the robbery hide their weapons and take off their masks. You can't identify a person by the back of their head. So even if someone looked at the window and saw the back of their heads, all they could probably say is what race you were. You get into a car, you go past some cars because you're parked with your trunk towards the fucking restaurant, and nobody really saw what your vehicle looked like. You throw the bags in the car, the bags and guns in the trunk, masks, all of it. Everyone gets into the car. You drive away. Now, it's going to take them at least 30 seconds to call the cops, and 2 minutes for them to respond. Okay? At least 2 minutes. So, you parked the Vanish car at least, I would say at least 1 block away, at most 2 miles away, because the cops are going to come hard and you got to go fast. So what you need to do is you park the stolen vehicle anywhere, basically. Torch it if you have the time, or make sure you plan for everyone wearing gloves, no fingerprints, no problem, right? Then you hoof over to the Vanish car, drive the Vanish car, disappear. That's your fucking robbery. You should come out with, like, I don't know, 30 fucking phones, $600 in cash from the patrons, and maybe $600 in cash from the fucking cash register. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, it might not be worth all the effort that goes into it, but I think it could work. I mean, I don't know. I mean, don't technically, legally, don't try it, but it could work. So, let's get back to the movie. That was like fucking 15 minutes of some shit you didn't want to know about, huh? So I think, like, there's some really big moments in this movie that are extremely memorable. There's Mia Wallace and Vincent Vega. Mia Wallace, played by Uma Thurman, and her date with Vincent Vega, John Travolta, and her ODing at the end. That's like a huge scene. There's the scene that you've seen from the intro, or heard from the intro. There is Butch and Marcellus Wallace in the basement. I mean, this movie's extremely memorable, and it's got a lot of wonder, like the watch and the ass. That's, everybody knows about it. He held his watch in his ass. You know, I mean, everybody knows about this shit. You know, the case, like what is in the case, like Vincent Vega, in the opening of the, like in the first 15 minutes of the movie, he opens the case and like this gold light shines on him. And then it happens later at the end when they're in the diner, and the person who's robbing the diner ends up robbing Jules Winfield and Vincent Vega, and the case glows gold at the robber, and he goes, "Wow, holy shit," you know, "oh my God." You know, and I've always wondered, you know, everybody has always wondered what's in the case, and honestly, it's probably fucking like Marcellus Wallace's fucking soul. Who knows, though? I mean, the thing is, it was left a mystery to be fun. But this movie is extremely memorable, and I think it's benefited by being out of order. Now, this is something that It doesn't happen often in Quentin Tarantino film. It happens enough, but this sort of out of order film style is something that Quentin Tarantino is known for, and it's because like it's exactly what books do. Like books can just characters just pop in and pop out according to whatever the fuck the writer wants, and Quentin Tarantino jumped on that and was like, well, why can't movies do the same thing where we tell a story out of order? And I think that Pulp Fiction benefits, honestly, from being out of order. I don't think the movie would be as exciting if the movie was in order. And actually, I think somebody came up with a rip of the movie where it is actually in order. I've never watched it, but I think it's out there. So, all in all, I think this movie is pretty fucking good. And if for some reason you haven't seen it, I'd say watch it. But it changed my mind recently this last week, and I honestly do think it's up there in Quentin Tarantino's movies. If you want me to drop a top 3 at some point, let me know. Put it in the old comments, and I can drop a top 3 on you and do an episode on that. I'd love to do that. But this movie is not in my top 3 Quentin Tarantino films. But I think it is very fucking good, and I will change my mind and grow as a person and say that it is a fucking good movie. And I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed watching it. And I hope that if you haven't seen it, you watch it. And if you have seen it, that's my view on it now. I actually kind of like it. So, that'll be the end of this episode. These fluxes, they're supposed to be short. I don't want you guys to have to watch a fucking podcast that's as long as the fucking movie. I want you guys to have a little episode of TV about how long the fucking movie is. So, thank you for starting your weekend out right with Love Will Die. Follow your death drive. Simply be despair. And I'll see you next time.